So welcome to New Earth Podcast. We have the most fabulous guest with us today, Peter Smith, who is a consciousness explorer, which is one of my favorite subjects. So I'm really excited to dive deep with Peter today. He's also an author and creator of an amazing system, quantum consciousness. So welcome to New Earth Podcast, Peter.
Hi, Sarah. It's great to be here with you. I'm looking forward to an awesome conversation.
Super exciting. So would you like to just start by sharing a little bit about how you got into consciousness? Because I understand that you were the president for the Michael Newton Institute for about 10 years.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
Is that how you got into consciousness originally?
Well, it was actually before that. And I think like many people who listen to podcasts, I got into things, gently put a toe in the water and then another toe and then a whole foot and then a leg. And then eventually you plunge right in. But for me, it was learning a Reiki course like 30 years ago. And something weird was happening. And I couldn't quite understand it because I had a corporate life back in those days. And I was sort of moonlighting on weekend as a sort of a explorer person. And, I felt this energy going through my hands and somebody else said, wow, your hands are really hot. And, I'm just thinking, well, what's going on here? So from there, I went off and I did my own past life regressions and they were amazing. And then I became a hypnotherapist. Then I started to gradually move through that. I found Life Between Lives work, got involved with the Michael Newton Institute. Still there now, still on the board, running a big change program for us. So we retired the president's job a few years ago because it just got too big. And that job actually became 4 different directorships in the end. So, we've continued on. And of course, the quantum consciousness piece, I got interested in quantum physics. And that started to emerge. And Michael Newton, who passed a few years ago now, he actually started to talk to me about quantum physics. He says, well, there's this big overlap between spirituality and quantum physics. And he actually referenced his books, which are bestsellers. He said, well, there's references to quantum physics in the books. And I'd missed them the first time because I wasn't ready to see them. So for me, it's been, if you like, a trail of energy that I've followed and surrendered to, and it's taken me to places that I never thought I'd get to.
What an incredible journey. I'd love to explore with you some more this relationship between spirituality and science, because it's proving to be more and more linked. The deeper we dive into quantum physics, the more we find ourselves there. We find our spirituality, who we really are. Is that something you can talk to a little bit more?
I'd love to. And this is a great conversation that I'm having more and more times. It's the third one of these conversations I've had this week. And people are asking this question so often now, Sarah. So first and foremost, if we look at quantum physics, I'm not talking about, research science or medical science or anything that. I'm talking about the really out there stuff, quantum physics, scientifically proven that the universe is not what we think it is. But then if you talk to a quantum physicist and you talk to, say, an energy practitioner, they tell us the same thing, that the universe is made up of energy and that there's this energetic infrastructure behind all life, whether it's matter and subatomic particles or whether it's the chakras of the human body. I mean, everything is this energetic infrastructure. So, we've seen science and spirituality start to sort of overlap a little bit. But for me, if we talk about consciousness is the common language of both. And once had an overlap between science and spirituality, when we bring consciousness into it, we actually blend those two landscapes together into one. Because a quantum physicist will talk to you about the observer effect, and they'll talk about the other dimensions in string theory. They'll talk about the many worlds interpretation. And all of this is about expanded consciousness that is happening in different vibrational frequencies. And then you talk about consciousness to a spiritual person, they'll talk about spiritual consciousness. And it's the same thing. So the common ground now is that, yes, everything is energy, but it's consciousness that brings that landscape to life. And once that landscape, yeah.
I love that. And I actually believe that consciousness medicine is the medicine of the future, you know, working with that to make that bridge, you know, so that we can truly understand who we are at a much deeper level. It's kind of this reclaiming and remembering process that we go through. You talked about how the quantum physicists approach it sort of in terms of frequency. And, you know, I understand also possibility, you know, at what our potential is as well, which I find really interesting, because that then awakens us to a much more sort of magnificent possibility in ourselves, you know, rather than, you know, even the astrology, for example, it can in some ways seem to limit us, but I see it as just a starting point, you know, from which we can expand. Do you see things in a similar kind of a way?
Well, absolutely. You know, we've always talked about the collapse of the wave function when it comes to quantum physics. But then in 1957, a paper came out. It was a dissertation by a young quantum physicist coming through. And he said that rather than the wave function collapse, it continues on in all of its possibilities. And that became the many worlds interpretation. And it's just a difference of frequency. And as you change that dial on the frequency dial, you change that dial and you get a different reality. And I think that our intention is everything. I mean, our intention is that dial. And I mean, you know, from your own work that, you know, we work with vibration, we work with frequencies, we work with energy. And, you know, when you say you see it as the medicine of the future, I couldn't agree more. I think more and more people are awakening that we're not just this physical specimen. We are this incredible, energetic, spiritual being that once we're seen that way and we're in the hands of a practitioner who sees us that way and understands that, so much more is available than what we have out of the current medical systems.
That's so interesting what you're saying about the you know, changing the frequency and changing the reality, because this is New Earth podcast and we're really exploring how we move into this new earth. And for me, it's always about the inner work. It's always about, you know, changing our personal frequency, and then that change the world. You know, if enough of us change that dial, as you put it, you know, then we're going to automatically have a different world. So how would you suggest going about sort of changing our resonance, changing our frequency, so that we become more resonant in a way, rather than having these kind of vibrations that are kind of out of alignment or in dissonance?
Well, I think it's all about intention. And the intention for me is everything. And if we set our sights on something and we move towards it and we bring it into our knowing, then it becomes not just a possibility, but a self-fulfilling prophecy. And some years ago, when the world was going just a little nuts with government restrictions and all of those things, I put together a series of conversations called the 2028 conversations, about how I shot a YouTube coming from 2028 and telling how the new world had emerged. And I put together.
I saw that. It's
did you
really
see that?
inspiring, because it's kind of like predictive programming, isn't it? If we're kind of programming into, then that's what's going to come about, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So what that showed me was that people really got on board with that. And, you know, in that little 7-minute video, I talked about how, this is, we don't have sort of individual governments anymore. There's there's the people that support the planet, and there's the people that support the people, and they work together in all the countries. We talked about the new projects that have been established around the world to bring us back to consciousness and restore the planet. We talked about a new medical system that involved energy. So we just came up with 5 different great ideas, and I talked about them. And then we put out these documents that people could go and have, instead of like a Tupperware party or something like that. You could have a consciousness party and you could talk about one of the 5 subjects. So the 2028 program was born out of that, and people can download material straight off the website for free and start to have those conversations. If enough of us do that, then I feel that we bring a new world into being just by creating it from within ourselves.
Absolutely. And then people start to come together and create it as a group. And that's what's happening. Like I'm an ambassador for People's Health Alliance, and we're coming together to create a new healthcare system that incorporates allopathic and alternative practitioners. That so it's truly holistic. And, you know, we've got this kind of referral system rather than this kind of, you know, I need to keep all the clients to myself kind of approach, which is really old world, you know. So it's like, how can we work together? So it's a really beautiful unfolding that's already happening, you know. It's really amazing.
Well, I mean, that's an example of oneness, Sarah.
Yes,
And, you know, we've had too much separation. We've had
absolutely.
too much division. You know, I talk about this a little bit in some of the presentations that I do. I talk about how we have a finance system and a medical system and a political system and an education system that are all built on separation
Well, I mean, the
and
Newton sort of
materialism.
approach is very classic of that. You know, just what's wrong with the knee? Just look at the knee. You know, it's we just don't operate like that. You know, it's
Yeah, that's right. It's not
yeah,
cause and effect. It's the body
yeah,
sending us a message. And if
yes.
there's something happening with the knee, then the knee's speaking out and the knee has something to tell us. So with the work that we do, we go outside the body and then we have a conversation with the knee, and the knee is incredibly insightful.
And sometimes it's not about the knee. Sometimes the knee's stopping us from going out for runs because we might have a heart attack. You know, you know, there's an intelligence, you know, so it's not necessarily a problem. And this is something I love about your work, Peter, is that you know, when I think I read that your everything is an opportunity for resonance. So I love this idea of not looking for the problems, looking for the solutions, seeing things as you wish them to be, seeing people in their magnificence, even if they can't see that for themselves just quite yet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we see every trauma, every difficulty, every problem as simply a request for resonance. I feel that everything in the universe seeks resonance. It wants to be in its full homeostasis. It wants to be in a condition that is its highest possible vibration. If the vibration drops, then it sends out a frequency of a lower vibration that is simply a request for resonance. And you know, we get our practitioners to answer the request for resonance, and the reason they can do that is because they see everybody in their magnificence. I mean, every person is a spiritual masterpiece waiting to be remembered.
Yeah, and I mean, I work with this as well, this idea of, you know, looking for people, looking in terms of who people really wish to become, you know, rather than seeing the problems of who they are now, because ultimately that enables people to be seen and understood, you know, which is, if we just see people in their limitation, we're not really seeing them, you know.
Yeah,
It's you know, so it's a beautiful journey of allowing people to awaken, to be seen, and to reclaim these aspects of themselves. And what I love, I've actually had a journey with Peter, which I found really insightful. And there was so much, you know, I've done a lot of inner work, but there was so much unfolding for me in it. Probably one of the most powerful pieces is was this kind of reclaiming of what I saw as home, because it's been a journey for me. And I've done a lot of qigong and a lot of grounding work to kind of enable myself to, you know, be happy on planet Earth, is one way to put it. So it's, you know, I've done that work, but there's still this sense of, you know, this deep inner sense of perhaps on some level not belonging. And with the work with Peter, it enabled me to connect with kind of origins in Sirius, which, and I just had this sense of being surrounded by so much love and understanding that it was quite mind-blowing for me, you know. So that that's the kind of work you do, isn't it? Kind of helping people connect with many lifetimes, alternate realities, parallel lifetimes, all kinds of dimensions, really.
absolutely. And the thing to remember, Sarah, is that none of us are from here. I mean, souls are not created on earth, but we come into these bodies in order to bring about change and to be part of this big shift and this awakening that's in full swing around the globe as old systems fall away and new ones are being birthed, like your health alliance that you talk about. So, we know, and this is a trend that we've seen in Michael Newton's work as well at the Institute, and I'm seeing it in the quantum consciousness work through the Institute for Quantum Consciousness as well, is that there are a lot more people who are incarnating here that have cosmic origins, and that they're more comfortable in other parts of the universe. And it's like all hands on deck here in these times so that we can raise the vibration of this planet and shift into our cosmic potential. And, that ripples out from this planet into other places as well. So we talk to souls who are incarnating here from all over the universe who are more comfortable in other places, but they've come here to this difficult place in order to bring about change.
I had this quite deep sort of aha moment when you said, no one's from planet Earth. It really resonated with me. It's something I hadn't really thought of before. So thank you for that insight, firstly. And why do you feel it's so difficult here on planet Earth, and why do you feel, obviously we're here, the planet is raising her vibration and we're supporting that process, but what is it about planet Earth? I know it's a huge kind of learning potential to come here, but if nobody's from here, what exactly are we doing here other than perhaps a learning journey?
Well, I believe this planet is a place of great natural beauty. And I've had the great opportunity to live outside of cities for a number of years now. And I look at the landscapes of where I've been able to live in the last decade or so, and I'm just blown away by what this planet has to offer. I mean, we all know that, but then we come together in a way that we build systems that make things more difficult. I do believe that our planet has been somewhat compromised energetically, in that the systems that we've set up are built around greed, materialism, power, fear, all of those lower vibrations. And as a result, we've become a really tough school for souls to incarnate here. I mean, you learn incredible things and you accelerate your own learning before you head back to source with all of the things that you've discovered. But for me, who we are today is nothing near the potential of who we can be. And as we remember more and more of our magnificence, we embrace our cosmic roots, we start to come together as one people, and we don't do separation anymore. We don't do greed. There is no reason for there to be billionaires on this planet while there are children dying of starvation. That's just plain wrong. And I think anyone that looks at us from other planets or in other civilizations are probably shaking their heads. And they're saying, how can those people do that to each other? So there's an incredible rebalancing of humanity as one people that I feel that we're heading into, because it just needs to be that way for us to find resonance and oneness around this planet.
So, like, the piece for me that's quite new, like I've done a lot of exploring in frequency and consciousness, but the piece for me that's quite new is this whole cosmic sort of intergalactic, things like Sirius, Pleiades, all that stuff. It's kind of like I've looked at the astrology, Mars, all those, Venus, all that, but not sort of really looked so much at this. So do we tend to, when we're in spirit or in, like, for example, do we tend to just go back to Sirius? Would I just tend to go back to Sirius always? So we tend to kind of keep within our own people, with our own understanding. And here on Earth, are we just a whole mixed bag? And is our lesson here to kind of, integrate with all this different, and then will that help on a cosmic level, some deeper level of integration that we perhaps haven't found before? Is that how you see it, Peter?
Well, I believe we're all human in part, but there's different aspects of cosmic soul energy that we all carry from different places. And I think that in order to bring about change on this planet, all of these other civilizations that are out there in the universe need to have boots on the ground. So from all of these other civilizations, they incarnate into human form, and that's when you get people who are less comfortable in human form, where we do one of those cosmic home journeys like we worked with, where you remember your origins while you're still here, and you become a bridge between worlds and are no longer homesick. That's the intention of that particular type of journey. But I feel that we come here, we learn for a while, and then we go back. Michael Newton's model in his work is that we go back to the spiritual realm. I've had people go back to a more galactic spin on that type of realm. And I know that a lot of Michael's work has been metaphoric, and we're understanding more of that now, that, you know, our greater consciousness uses a lot of metaphor and analogies so that we can understand and integrate our learnings. But the bottom line there is that we can remember our immortality while we're still in mortal form. And that's the big shift of Michael's work, is that you don't have to wait until the end of this life to go back to wherever it is that you go back, that is non-human form, before you maybe even return again. But then time and space doesn't really exist anyway. It's only a construct for learning. Even Einstein said that. He said time and space are more modes in which we think, rather than real aspects of the universe. So for me, it's about that ever unfolding piece of us coming here to bring about change before we go back. We perhaps have a breather. We take form again. And, you know, I'm getting more and more in line with that thought that everything's happening at once, and that time and space is more of an illusion, because everything is non-local anyway. Everything is everywhere, and we're outside time and space. And what we're talking about now is, you know, Sarah's a disguise and Pete's a disguise, and our disguises are having a great conversation so that can go to the other disguises that are here on this planet, for those souls. So for me, it's about an awakening to that, and understanding of that, and how we work with it to change the planet that we're on.
I mean, that's quite mind-blowing, isn't it, when we start to look at everything? I mean, you know, that this idea of like everything exists in the now moment, you know, we can kind of grasp. But then when we start to look at parallel lives, which is something that you talk about, so everything happening, you know, kind of simultaneously, that it's difficult to get your head around that, isn't it? Do you have any kind of succinct ways to support people to understand that?
Yeah, and it's great for people to know a few of these simple pieces. And let me start with a couple of simple ones. Anybody listening is the age they are now. But if something happened to them when they were, say, 8 years old, some tragedy at home or whatever it might be, they may still carry the difficulty of that with them now as an adult, in their adult years. So, you know, when I started life as a hypnotherapist, and I can't really call myself a hypnotherapist anymore, more of a consciousness explorer. But even back in the old days when I was doing age regression, I would take those people back to when they were 8 years old, and they would be revivicating that trauma. And we would do that so that we could release it. And we set that 8-year-old free, and the adult in the here and now changes. So there's a strange sort of timelessness that, you know, you still carry that 8-year-old trauma with you, and say you're 45 or something like that. You're still carrying that 8-year-old trauma with you. But when the 8-year-old heals, the 45-year-old heals. So that's a great example of timelessness that might make sense to people. Also, if you look at past life work, and people, you know, it's become very, very popular these days to do past life regressions. When people do a past life regression, they go back to another time that they are in, maybe even an ancient life. They may be fighting a lion in the Colosseum, or being chased through the forest by the soldiers because they've been playing with too many herbs, or whatever that may be. And they're describing it as it's unfolding. You know, they say the lion's coming at me, it's jumped at me, it's got its, you know, its jaws around my throat, whatever it might be, without going into too much of a grisly story. But they're not just saying, oh yeah, there was this time 2,000 years ago when this lion came at me. They're in it. So what that tells me is that we can transport our consciousness across time and space. And the only reason we could do that would be as if time and space are an illusion. So it
It's an interesting
starts to
one.
make sense.
I mean, there's so many questions I could ask for this. I mean, looking at those kind of aspects of myself, in terms of Sirius, how does that connect in with the concept of now as well? And then in terms of the past life, I find it quite interesting because if you look, this kind of identification, because my understanding is that when we pass, we go back to source, and everything that's unresolved sort of kind of goes into that kind of cosmic pool of unresolved. So then there's a question, is it my past life, or is it kind of like just stuff that I've brought through in this lifetime in order to learn the lessons that I need to learn in this lifetime on my soul's journey? So that identification with those kind of pieces, in a way, is it best just to have a sort of view of non-attachment in relation to them, in terms of sort of, is the, for example, the example you gave in terms of the tiger's mouth, is that kind of reliving it potentially and drawing it closer, or how does your work kind of help to disassociate a lot of those fragments, as it were?
If I try to find a simple analogy, then, are they my past lives, or am I simply a library card into the collective unconscious? And am I pulling out of that library the lesson that I most need for this session today? Is it my past life, or is it a collective one? And I think that there's a chance that it could be either. I think there's connections into our own experiences in other bodies for this particular unique consciousness that have a greater clarity and sense of ownership. But I feel that we can pull anything we want to out of the collective unconscious, out of the quantum field, if you like. And if it's in the interest of learning, and if we create an intention to go into that collective to pull out the piece that we need, then we can really come up with anything, because we are part of the collective unconscious. Each of us individually, we are part of the consciousness of this planet outside of time and space. So we are our own library card into this incredible repository of wisdom that's waiting for us to tap into it to learn the things that we want to.
I love this idea of the library card. It really resonates with me, and it makes so much sense because there's been, studies of autistic children that are kind of dialed into a particular radio station, and they can work out the date of Easter, for every year. And apparently it's a really difficult calculation because there's all kinds of, things that needs to align with, but they can just calculate it in their heads. So they're dialed into that radio station, and others are types of cars, all kinds of information that you would just never be able to know. So, potentially, if we remove the filters, if we remove the blocks within ourselves, we can all access this information. And, that is the potentiality. That's the quantum field. That's where anything, healing and transformation, is totally possible. And certainly with my work, that's what I'm working to dial people into, and working to connect with that, kind of to bring through what's needed for healing. So it's an incredible kind of insight, this idea of the library card as an access point. And in a way, I guess it doesn't really matter, and I guess it goes back to what you said earlier in terms of, that metaphorical piece rather than, I mean, the example I would give is when working with astrology, we could look at it in terms of the planets, or we could look at it as that inner archetype, that inner voice, that we're embodying that by working with that planet. We're bringing through that resonance and that understanding. So it's that inner outer connection, which is of consciousness, which is so interesting. And then we come back to the quantum and the spirituality again, and the yin and the yang, and that unfolding. And it's there's never really an answer, so just lots of possibilities. So I love that.
And look, even science validates that very thing that you just spoke to, Sarah, because, are we the particle or are we the wave? When it comes to these subatomic particles, I mean, ultimately we're both. And even in ancient times, the old Sufi poet Rumi, I mean, he talked about this stuff, you are both the ocean and the drop. And, that's part of this whole oneness thing. And there's this fantastic book called The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot. And, he talks about the fact that the small and the large contain the same information. And, I'm here and I'm watching you over Zoom, and you are the collective consciousness because, you are the library card. That means you are the library. So because you've got access to everything you need to. So, we're all both those things. We are both ourselves and part of something that is far greater than ourselves. Call it our personal divinity, whatever words work for people. But the bottom line on all of this is that we are magnificent, far beyond our knowing. And it's time for us to remember.
Absolutely. And it's wonderful the work that you're doing, Peter, to really support this. It's incredibly powerful work. I'd love to bring in now this, I know you want to do a practical piece, and it would be lovely to bring that in now, having had that expansion of awareness, because we've spoken about time already. And I know you want to kind of bring in and work with our future selves. When you were speaking earlier, one of the things that came up for me was this idea of, in terms of New Earth and moving into New Earth, it's about us really embodying this as an individual, because like this drop analogy, we all need to do the work, we all need to step up, we all need to kind of make this shift. It's not about looking to the authority outside of ourselves. That's the old model. So as we move into the age of Aquarius is about that kind of the differences, us all shining our own sort of facet of the diamond, that makes the whole, but us all doing it through our individual self. It's not about a collective, everyone doing exactly the same kind of a collective. It's about all the different facets. So I just wanted to put that out there as we kind of work with it, because it just seems that we were stepping into that as part of our future self possibility as well, kind of really awakening, whatever facet it is that we've come here to do at this time.
And we all have a role to play, and they're all different. We don't need 8 billion people doing the same thing, because so much would be left undone. And, just to show love and compassion to a family, or to help somebody in need, or to run some sort of a healing practice, or to teach some things to other people. We need everybody doing everything. And this whole wave of consciousness that is shifting, we're all particles within that, and we all have our own role to play. But part of this experiential that we'd love to do is, we call this a +5, and we connect with a version of ourselves that is from a higher vibration. And, I go back to the many worlds interpretation, that we make these different decisions on the way through, and we take two paths. I made a decision that I wanted to live both in that country and I wanted to live in that country. So chances are I lived in both, because in different timelines and different realities under the many worlds interpretation, we will have gone in two directions. And the beauty of that is that we can connect with each other because we're quantumly entangled. Now, if we look at our +5 and we bring an aspect of what they have from the future, and we set it up in certain parameters, that it must be of a higher vibration, a piece of wisdom that serves us in the here and now, and leaves both that version of ourselves and ourselves here in a higher vibration than when we started. So it might be as much as receiving wisdom and offering gratitude in return, whatever that may be. Now, when we're doing these, there's a couple of things to remember. And first of all, I'll say to anybody who's listening to this in the car, or perhaps they're doing something else that requires their attention, I'm going to gently suggest that you might want to tune out and maybe come back to this podcast a little later on when you've got some time and space at home. Might be good to have a pen and paper handy just to write down any key messages. But we want to set something up for people that allows them to drift outside of time and space, to meet this other version of themselves, to receive a beautiful message that may be helpful to them in the here and now, and then to just write that down and bring it into your life. So it would be quite a short journey. It won't take a long period of time, maybe 10 minutes or something like that. And remember that whatever happens, whatever you get, is what you're meant to have, because your soul is always bringing through the information that you need and yet you're ready for. So we'll say to anybody, have no expectation. Doesn't matter what you get, and whether it's an aspect of you, a different type of message, whether you feel it, whether you hear it, whether you see it, none of that's important. Just allow it. So that
So
hopefully
much.
that takes care of our drivers.
Well remembered. I knew I needed to remind you because
Yeah. We were worried about that, weren't we? If anyone's driving a truck or something.
yeah,
But yeah, but they can always bookmark this and come back and do it when they're home and they're
absolutely. It'll be
safe
well
and
worth
sound in a
coming
nice
back
chair.
to. Even if
Yeah,
you've done it before, it'd probably be worth returning to.
yeah, absolutely. So let's begin. Okay, so we'll ask everybody just to take a nice deep breath and let that breath go. And as you do, just get a sense of there being more to you than you know. And as you start to feel that and remember that, you are so much more. Bring some peace. And you relax further into that peace. And as you breathe the universe further into your being, and you breathe your awareness out into that universe, it's like this beautiful cycle happens. You breathe the universe in, your awareness out into the universe, which then comes back in, and it starts to move you beyond time and space as we know it to be. With every breath that you take, it's like a hard line of your body and your surroundings starts to blur. Get a sense of seeing yourself as more of an energy field, as part of a bigger one. With every breath that you take and then release, it's like you move beyond the body that you're in. You start to fill the room that you're in. Chance to observe yourself breathing. You allow yourself to drift outside of where you are, out further, as the quantum field absorbs you and you expand beyond time and space, moving up and away where you are, seeing the landscape, perhaps cities or countryside. And time seems to stop. The world seems to become very quiet. As you move further and further away, just surrender to this naturally unfolding experience. That's it. And as the layers of the human self fall gently away, it's like your natural state of being is free as you continue to expand. Because you are pure consciousness, gently embracing your divine state of being beyond all human knowing and imagination. And you are always this. And in this moment, as this is remembered, the gentle surrender into your magnificence brings a profound return to your resonant state, felt so easily, natural. Everything else falls gently away. You are a vibrational being in a universal symphony of light. offering your energy to all there is, and bringing harmony and resonance to a life that will soon be forever changed. All this felt and experienced as our journey so naturally unfolds. And as you drift to this beautiful place outside of time and space, you send an invitation into the future for another version of you 5 years out to join you. And they come because they love you so much that they want to travel across time and space to bring you a message that helps you enormously in where you're at in this moment. And as you allow them to come into your field of knowing, and you sense them, and you sense the incredible love that underpins their efforts to join you now. They come with a high vibrational message, one that's important for you to know. And as you come together now, a conversation commences, and you observe them. You connect with them, and their message is shared. Just take a moment with that now. Perhaps that conversation continues. Perhaps it's just their presence that brings you a level of hope and knowing that you can be that vibration that they are now. And as you sense their energy and your energy drifting together, if you like it to, if you choose to, you can absorb the frequencies that they offer. Perhaps their knowledge and wisdom. Allow that to drift effortlessly into your being in a way that offers you so much. And that beautiful exchange continues. And you may offer gratitude in return for them coming so far to be with you just now. And as you feel it, sense it, experience it, something awakens within you. Something you no longer need may just gently fall away. And you get a sense of hope and freedom for what lies ahead. Now that this exchange is complete for now, and you can return to this conversation anytime you wish to, as they gently fade into the background, and you feel the new vibration, you start to get a sense of how your life will be forever changed. And you start to absorb that wisdom and that knowing that's been offered. You allow it to unfold within you and around you in a way that is just simply beautiful. This is who you really are. This is who you were always meant to be. And now you are. And as you feel that now, you start to drift back into the here and now, bringing those messages with you. Getting a sense of being back in this physical body in this linear time. Grounding now. Feeling yourself back in the here and now. And allowing yourself to be all that you are. Carrying this new vibration, this new frequency. And when you're ready, you can drift back into the here and now. Open your eyes and return. That's it. Little stretch, maybe jotting down a note if you need to. Just feeling your way back into wherever you are. Okay. And welcome back to you too, Sarah.
Just about back.
I can't ask the others. So how was that for you?
It was very powerful. I felt this kind of golden light coming in from my left-hand side. And then it kind of sank into my whole body. It was a really, it was very, very powerful. You know, had a conversation, but I would say the energetics of it was kind of more powerful than the conversation, really. So
yeah,
I just wondered if that meant anything coming in from the left at all. Do you read anything into these things, or not so much?
I think your experience is your experience. I mean, we would know that to be the spiritual or feminine side of the body, but so it would sort of make sense, I guess, that way. So I guess that validates a little bit from that perspective. But I think your experience is your own, and Spirit knows what she's doing when she offers you whatever the experience is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking us through that process. It's lovely, you know, it's lovely to make it an experiential piece to the podcast, so people get a feel for how you work as well. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before we close up? I'll be putting your website information in the description so people can find you.
Thank you. There's a couple of books I've written if people are interested. Quantum Consciousness was one that I wrote some years ago, which underpins the work and some of the science behind it. The one that really excited me lately was the one that we launched just a few months ago called The Transcendence of Celeste Kelly, which is about a quantum physicist who discovers consciousness and tries to save the world, and goes out there and uses aspects of quantum physics and aspects of consciousness, bringing it together. But of course, novelizing the work that I've been doing for a long time, for me, was a lot of fun. Lovely. But of course, her journey is not an easy one, because there are people trying to stop her from taking the world to a new vibrational frequency. So so we had a lot of fun launching that book recently as well. But happy for people to reach out to us. I know that you have these conversations with people all the time as well, Sarah. So I just want to encourage people to explore, either to speak to you, to speak to me, to speak to anybody that comes recommended to them, because the more that we can explore consciousness in any way, whether it's reading a book or looking at a presentation, going to a conference, all of what we do in that exploratory energy goes into the collective and helps to shift humanity in the right direction. So, my advice to people is just get out there and explore and discover who you are. There's lots of ways you can do it, and find the one that's right for you.
Absolutely. And I feel ultimately what we're doing is overcoming the programming of separation. That's the ultimate journey that we're all on at this time. So, thank you for all that you're doing, Peter, to support that process.
And thank you too, Sarah. And it's great to be able to share what I do on the podcast. So thank you. And I've been looking at your podcast, and you're talking to some great people who are really out there making a difference, and you're giving us all a voice. So thank you for what you do.
Oh, thank you. I'm really enjoying it. That's the perk of my job. I get to speak to some amazing people. So do subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Apparently YouTube have got a new feature that when I mention subscribe, it does a big arrow and sparkles when you subscribe. So so have a play with that. And thank you so much, Peter. And we'll speak again soon. Bye for now.
Thanks very much.